And one of the main things we have done is to have district elections where we elected district teams. So across the 17 districts, Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique, we have elected new district teams. And we can say we've retained some of the coordinators. We have new coordinators in some areas, new deputies, and some new members of the teams. And what we've tried to do is strengthen those teams as we go along, because these are volunteers who provide services for the agency, and we have to ensure that these volunteers are organized and ready to respond in the event, that we're impacted by any hazard or that anything happens that we need to respond to. So we've done that. We've strengthened our district teams. We've done orientation and training for them, on Grenada, all the teams in Grenada, and we did Carriacou and Petite Martinique. We've also done some emergency communications training. We've done shelter management training, and we intend to continue providing training for the teams as we go along. As you know, over the years we've trained quite a number of people in areas related to disaster management in Grenada. So we want to continue that process so that we have people across the country trained in different areas in disaster management. So when we have to respond and we need volunteers, people are available.
All right. You mentioned, of course, in the opening there that shelter management training and so forth. How was the procedures of that? How did that go down? How was the representation from individuals wanting to learn more in terms of how to manage shelters and so forth? And you also mentioned that we are in the heightened season now of the hurricane season, the heightened level, I should say. Thank God we haven't had any major, of course, activity happening in our region, our neck of the woods, I would say that. So tell us about the shelter management process that went through. How was it, and how did the individuals who went through the training, how they accepted it and so forth? And also, if you could give us the level of individuals, how was they in terms of volunteering their time to be part of the activities of NADMA?
So we are definitely in the peak of the hurricane season, and so we're down. The last one we had was Margot, I believe. We're heading to N shortly, and I'm hoping that we don't have to go to N, use the names, right? Any other names. So I'm hoping that there's no storm or hurricane, coming up. But we have to be mindful that the hurricane season ends at the end of November. And so we can see anything happening up to the end of November, and even outside of that or after the end of November. So it can happen. It is possible. We're hoping that it doesn't happen, but we have to be mindful. So I just wanted to remind the public that we're still in the hurricane season, and we get out of the hurricane season at the end of November. So just to remind us. Now, and to say and to add here, let's not let our guards down, because sometimes we think, okay, if a couple weeks pass and we didn't see anything happening, we kind of start to let our guards down and figure, well, we're okay. But no, we don't want that to happen. Okay, the shelter management. So first of all, we have 100 shelters across Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique, and these shelters are inspected. We have a team of persons who inspect the shelters and then sit and decide whether the buildings can be used as emergency shelters or not. So they will go out, they will inspect all the buildings, and then they will decide these buildings are, or we can give these buildings a pass to be emergency shelters. So that's done, and then we release the list at some point. We have been discussing releasing the list of emergency shelters at the beginning of the year, because sometimes people tend to look for the list of shelters in June. So if you don't have a list of emergency shelters at the beginning of June, it appears as though you're not ready for the hurricane season. And we want to get away from that, because the shelters are not hurricane shelters, but they're emergency shelters, and we can have events occurring at any time during the year. And when we publish the list, okay, that list is valid for another year. So we're thinking that we can publish our list of emergency shelters at the beginning of the year. but then that is something that we have to discuss further and make decisions on. But again, we've published our list of shelters in June of 2023, and that list will be valid for another year. In terms of the shelter management training that we provided, we provided training for, or if I may go back a bit, at each district you have a subcommittee responsible for shelter management, and you have a chair, you have a deputy, and then you have a few other persons who are on that subcommittee responsible for shelters in the district. So let's just pick one district, St. David North. All right, so you have a chairperson, deputy chairperson, and maybe 2 or so other members on that subcommittee responsible for the shelters in St. David North, or in St. Andrew Southwest, or in St. Patrick East. And these 4 persons, all right, will be responsible for ensuring that each shelter has a team that's ready if we have to activate the shelter. So a team that's ready to manage the shelter. So what we did, we took the chairperson and deputy chairperson for shelter management from each district, brought them together and provided training, certified training in shelter management. And then these persons, the chair and deputy from each district, they're now expected to go back to their district and brief the volunteers for shelter management at the district level. Now, at a later date, we will provide additional training for these shelter managers. Now, please, you have to bear in mind that we have 100 shelters, and each shelter we need to have an average of 10 volunteers. So that's 1,000 people across Grenada, Carriacou, PG Martinique for shelter management alone. All right, shelter management alone. So we've decided to provide the additional training in phases. Now, some people have already been trained, and there are people who are new and they need to be trained. So if we train the leadership of the shelter management at the district level, then the leadership can, brief the other members. And if we have to activate all our shelters, then at least we know that the leadership has certified training, and they will be able to provide guidance for the other shelter managers. So that's what we have done with the shelter management training, and as we go forward, we will provide additional training for the other volunteers.
I want to talk to you also, of course. I've been hearing sometime within the month of August, if we just go back a wee bit, NADMA will undergo that field hospital training also in the Sister Isle of Carriacou. Tell us a bit about that.
Mm-hmm. So the U.S. Southern Command has provided 2 field hospitals for Grenada. One is located on mainland, the other is on Carriacou. These are 40-bed hospitals that can be used for emergencies or disasters. So if, for instance, your main hospital is compromised for whatever reason, you have a 40-bed field hospital, and it's basically tents. Okay, it's basically tents.
All right.
That you set up on an open field, and so your medical people can function at that hospital. Again, it's 40 beds. Okay, 40 beds. It's fully air conditioned. It has its own generator that, if you fill it up, it can run the hospital for, I think, about 48 hours. Okay, without refueling. And it has all the amenities inside there. But I mean, at least there will be things like medication and so that you'll have to bring in. But it has all the facilities inside the hospital. There's a shower, there's toilet, there's everything there. So we have those 2 field hospitals, one in Grenada, one in Carriacou. And we had one training last year in March of 2022. And so we did one in this year in August. We went up to Carriacou and did a field hospital training where we set up a part of the field hospital and gave the volunteers an opportunity to assemble it and then dismantle and package and store. Because the field hospital is it has quite a lot of components, quite a lot of parts, and it requires about 20 people to set it up, right? You have to practice. You must practice assembling and dismantling. So that's why we went to Carriacou and did that training. So the intention now is to do another training on mainland Grenada later this year, another training in Carriacou, and so our volunteers will continue training on assembling and dismantling the field hospital, and because you need to ensure that it's stored properly. If you get a field hospital and you don't have to use it for, let's say, 5 or even 10 years, by the time you go to set up that field hospital, then it's like people will be wondering what to do. We have this thing here, how do we use it? So that's why you have to practice and ensure that there are people who have the knowledge, know what to do, and are able to set up that field hospital. So it has to be, you have to practice that on a continuous basis.
All right. So, Dr. Walters, we drew for a break. Let's take it. We come back and we certainly discuss some more. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point for today, Wednesday, the 13th day of September. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
Get ready. Is giving you more chances to multiply your Playway winnings by adding Multi-X to your regular Playway bets to win up to 5 times more. Imagine winning as much as $1,200 instead of $240 with a $10 Playway bet by simply adding Multi-X. Place your Playway bets from $1 to $10 or in increments on your favorite Playway symbols or numbers. Then add the Multi-X option at the same value to win 2 times, 3 times, 5 times more, or free plays. With Multi-X, you must bet the same amount wagered on your regular Playway bets for your winnings to be multiplied. Grenadians, value your dreams and win your way as much as 5 times more with Multi-X added to Playway, and watch your money grow. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
You came and found it clean.
You frolicked in it. You thrived on it. And no matter what flag or latitude, our economies depend on it.
Yet look at you, out the window.
Mindlessly tossed, carelessly dumped anywhere.
Take it just evaporates because you don't see it. Rivers,
Gutters,
Dump sites.
our blue waters unite us.
Each singular act multiplies the pollution that plagues us, that
Threatens the green and blue that sustains us.
but we can alter this cause.
If we put waste to work, not dumpable,
Bankable.
reuse it,
repurpose it.
recycle it.
Create jobs, build industries.
It takes just you
You.
And me.
to translate green actions into blue oceans.
If given a chance, your plastic would choose to be put to more beneficial use. Choose recycling.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers. Welcome back to another edition of To The Point. With me this morning, we have Dr. Terrance Walters with me this morning, and we're talking, of course, he represents NADMA this morning, and we're talking about, the latest developments with NADMA and so forth. Dr. Walters, welcome back once again. I want to get into the conversation about the recent, heat level that we've been experiencing lately. It's not only for Grenada. I mean, there are countries worldwide it's been affected. We know there's lots of disasters happening worldwide. Tell us in terms of advice that NADMA would like to put out. And recently we saw lots of, bulletins been put out in terms of giving people information and the things to keep themselves hydrated and so forth. Tell us from NADMA point of view, of course, in terms of advice that you'd like to tell the general, the listening and viewing public this morning pertaining to that heat situation that we're seeing, and how people can, in a way of protecting themselves in this time.
So we're hearing a lot about climate change, and there's a big movement to ensure that we take action based on what's happening with climate change, and we're having higher temperatures. So we're having hotter days, hotter nights. We've seen all kind of things happening. All right. So sometimes when you expect to have a dry season, you're having flooding. Okay, and we're seeing that the hazards are becoming more frequent, more intense. That's hurricanes and so forth. So a lot of things are happening, and a lot of it, we can say climate change is influencing. What we have over the past few weeks in Grenada, we have experienced some significant heat waves, and so we've had temperatures that are kind of record-breaking for extended periods. And we've sent out the heat wave warning, the heat wave bulletin, and letting people know to expect these high temperatures. And it's both day and night. So we have the high temperatures in the day and in the night. And we encourage people now to take whatever action is necessary to protect yourselves with the extra heat. So you have to consume more water, right? Because you have to ensure that you're hydrated, and other things like if you can avoid the open sunlight for extended periods, please do. If you can avoid crowded areas where you can get hot, please do that. If you know that you have any underlying medical conditions that you can cause maybe the heat and not having enough water, and so can cause these conditions to create any problems for you, please ensure that you pay attention to that. So there are a number of things that you can do and you should do, but we encourage people to pay attention, because if you're out in the open sunlight for extended periods and not hydrating and so forth, you can probably have heat stroke and things like that. But I'm not a medical person, but I'm just saying, things that can happen. So we want to ensure that people protect themselves as much as possible. So, for example, the people who are into the construction field and you have to work outside, long periods in the open sunlight, you can wear a hat. You can, wear some sort of protective clothing, ensure that you have water that you can drink, as often as possible. You can take, the employers can give the workers, short breaks, just to get themselves, refreshed and come back. So there are a number of things that we can do. I know some people have installed air conditioning units, some people have fans, etc. But it is a difficult period when you have these extended periods of heat. It can be difficult because we think of people, who are who live alone or they're bedridden, people in the senior citizens' home, at hospitals and so on. And these buildings are not air conditioned, or some of them are not air conditioned. But again, the heat will create conditions that can be uncomfortable. So we ask everyone to pay attention to these things, ensure that we do what is necessary to protect the senior citizens, protect our children, those who can't take care of themselves, that we do what is necessary to protect them as we experience and probably continue to experience these extended days with very high temperatures.
I want to continue our conversation this morning. Let's talk about the level of preparedness, from a Magna point of view in Grenada. You spoke a while ago about the shelters. You had the shelter management workshop and so forth. Let's talk in preparedness, communication, volunteer, ready to activate these shelters and so forth. Just in case, as you mentioned, we hopeful that nothing will happen. It's not until the end of November the hurricane season will wrap up. But they always say between the September and November, that's when the season gets a bit heightened for whatever reason. Tell us about the level of preparedness from NADMA point of view for Grenada, just in case a disaster happens to occur.
Well, the thing is that the peak of the hurricane season is like August, September, right? That's the peak. But you can have storms occurring before that and after that. But that's when you expect the peak, August, September. All right. In terms of NADMA being prepared, the agency is always prepared to respond. Always prepared to respond, and we always has resources so that we can respond if there's an event. Now, we depend heavily on our volunteers, to do a lot of the work. So that's why we have the district teams across the country. Our staff here at NADMA is small, and so we are not able to, if we have to respond, we're not able to be out in the communities because you have to man your office, man the National Emergency Operations Center, etc. So there are a lot of administrative things that you need to be doing. So you're not able to be out in all the districts at the same time. So we depend on our volunteers and ensuring that we provide training, for our volunteers, ensure that our volunteers are available to do what has to be done. That is very important for us. So again, the agency, our level of preparedness, it hinges on preparing our volunteers. And might I say here, if we have individuals who understand disaster management, understand the hazards, how they can impact us, and take individual action to prepare. So you take individual action, then your family, if you encourage your family members to take that action. So individuals, families, and if you have families that are prepared, communities will be better prepared. And by extension, parishes, districts will be better prepared, and the whole country will be better prepared. But it takes actions by individuals. So it's not just the police or health or the NADMA office, all right, that has to be prepared. Individuals throughout the country have to do their part in ensuring that they're prepared, and then we'd have a better prepared country. But generally, the National Disaster Management Agency is always prepared to respond to any hazard that may impact Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique.
Communication always seems to be something that, if we here in Grenada, always seem to be, of course, worried about, if we use a simple term of saying it. I guess sometimes folks talk about the lateness in terms of getting bulletins out and so forth from NADMA. Would we see an improvement in that in the near future? If there's plans to improve on that for some reason? I understand NADMA does not always have the information, except they receive it from the Met Office and so forth, in terms of when a particular, of course, incident has to occur or will occur. But the improvement of communications, tell us about that.
Well, if you've been if in recent times, if I may say, right, in the last few months, we have been doing our best to ensure that the public has the information and has it readily available and timely, very timely. So, for example, the heat wave bulletins that we've received from the Meteorological Office, right? We send them out immediately. As soon as we receive it, we send it. And we depend on the professionals to provide information first. So as soon as the professionals provide the information, we send it to the general public. So I can safely say that there has been some significant improvements recently, and we will continue to work to improve that even further as we go forward. But yes, there has been some significant improvements.
All right. We drew for a break again. Now we come back. We should chat some more to our listening and viewing public. If there's anyone have a question or two for Mr. Walters, feel free to do so when we do come back after the break. Stay with us, folks. We're coming right back. Stay with us here.
The biggest party in sport is back. CPL and WCPL return with more action than ever before.
Are you kidding me?
Watch the biggest names in cricket battle it out in the race for glory.
Brilliantly, celebrate some more.
Get your tickets now at cplt20.com or at the box office. Join the party. Experience cricket played louder.
Grenada's broadcast of Republic Bank CPL 2023 is made possible by Republic Bank. We're the one for you. The National Lotteries Authority, Granlac, and Hard On Plus.
Whoa, whoa. Rock the box, we say, yeah. GBN, we say, arts and culture living, yeah. Rock the box, we say. I'm telling you, rock the box, rock the box, rock the box, we say. I'm telling you, rock the box, rock the box, rock the box, we say. We'll be jamming here on a Thursday. It's a
Welcome back, listeners and viewers. It's to the point for today, Wednesday, the 13th day of September. With me this morning, Mr. Terrance Walters, and we're talking about the operations of NADMA and so forth. Mr. Walters, there's been, of course, some the emergency operations center. There's been some training going on in that lately. Maybe you could share with the viewing and listening public pertaining to what's been going on and so forth, pertaining to that emergency operation centers around the island.
All right. Well, thank you. And the U.S. Southern Command provided some emergency operation centers for Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique. So there's one. The headquarters of NADMA is at Montgelou, and then we have another sub office at Bel Air, Carriacou, which was these were constructed by the U.S. Southern Command in 2021 thereabouts, and so these buildings were commissioned, and so the U.S. Southern Command is currently in Grenada, all right, to provide the equipment. So they're here to outfit the buildings. They've built the buildings, given it to us, handed it over, and now they're going to outfit with like warehouse racks and racking and shelving, forklift and other furniture and equipment. So they're currently in Grenada to do that over the next few weeks. And as part of that, they will be providing emergency operations center training. All right, so they've built these two buildings, and the emergency operation centers will be housed at these buildings, so they're providing training. Now, the emergency operation center, if I may explain, you have the National Emergency Operation Center, and then you have district emergency operation centers. So the National Emergency Operation Center, which is the building where we would operate from if there is a national emergency or disaster. That's at Montgelou. You have the national, so all the stakeholders, all the key stakeholders, international organizations, regional organizations will function at the National Emergency Operations Center, which is at Montgelou. Then you have district emergency operation centers, and we have those located, one at Black Bay, one at River Sally, one at Pearls, one at Carriacou, and one at Petit Martinique. These are 5 district emergency operation centers. Now, these buildings exist, but we must train people to operate, train people to function, so that if you have to activate these buildings, that people don't just go in there and don't know what to do. You must provide training for them in terms of how they function while they're at the building, while or during the emergency, after the emergency. How do they function in terms of getting in reports, getting out reports, the emergency communication, like use of the radios, use of the satellite phones, things like that. You have to provide training for these people. And so this week, we're doing a training here at the headquarters. That's the U.S. Southern Command. They're providing that training. And then they go to Carriacou at the end of the month and provide the training for the folks on Carriacou. So it does take quite a lot when you're preparing for emergencies or disasters. There's a lot of cooperation that needs to happen. There's a lot of coordination that needs to happen, because all of these that we were talking about, the shelter management, damage assessment, the emergency operations center, those operations there, your relief management, all of these things, you need to coordinate that from one central location to ensure that your response to the emergency or to the disaster, your response is coordinated, and it provides service to the people that need the services. Yeah. So it takes quite a lot to ensure that you have all the volunteers in place, that you have all the services for all of the people.
All right, thank you so much. We do have a call online. Let's see what the caller has to contribute to the program this morning. Let's go over and say good morning. Caller, good morning and welcome.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Tellisford. Can I guarantee, good morning to your guest also, Mr. Walters there. Can I guarantee, Mr. Walters, can you hear me?
Yes, I am hearing you.
Interesting, therefore. Good morning, Terry. Listen, in 2008, the United Nations established a Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Article 11, yes, speaks directly to, quote, unquote, situations of risk and humanitarian emergencies. I repeat, situations of risk and humanitarian emergencies. Question: can you give the people of Grenada an idea of what your entity NADMA has done or is doing to guarantee the establishment of written and published disseminated protocols which will guarantee the safety and security of the population with disabilities in this here country? Thank you very much and have a nice day, will you?
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much.
All right, so the caller is asking about written guidelines and I must say that we have passed legislation, disaster management legislation, earlier this year, which will address some of those things that the caller is asking about. So the legislation was just passed and should be implemented, well, if I may say, shortly. But we have done other things that are not, so these are not written protocols. So things like ensuring that shelters can accommodate persons with disabilities. So you put in ramps and rails and so forth. That ensuring that we have equipment so that if we have to activate our shelters, at least we have some equipment to provide for persons who have to go to the shelters, persons with disabilities. Then we have one vehicle that can transport persons with disabilities or at least people who are using wheelchairs. So we've procured one vehicle that can transport up to 6 persons with or using wheelchairs at the same time. And so there are some things that we have done. We've been having discussions with various entities about ensuring that we cater for persons with disabilities. But it is a work in progress, and we continue to ensure that whatever we do, we take persons with disabilities into consideration in our developmental planning.
All right. We do have another caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning, GT. Good morning to Dr. Walters and also to the viewers and listeners. Just before I make my contribution, Mr. Walters, Dr. Walters, we will have to have more vehicles for people with disability. Yeah? I mean, one is not enough. Especially, we have to think from a parish point of view. Anyway, I've just thought I would add that before. I was encouraged when I heard you said that the aim is to be able to publish the list of disaster, what do you call it?
Emergency shelters.
Emergency shelters at the beginning of the year. Because recently I was in conversation with some people and I was saying that. I mean, it's ridiculous that we are announcing the thing, at the start or even after the start of the season. Albeit I understand that this new under your leadership is basically new in terms of getting things done now, and it will take a while. So I'm glad. I was very encouraged that. And you emphasize the nature of the fact that you need much volunteers to deal with some of the issues. There are a few factors that I don't think we take into consideration. We have been cultivating a selfish, individualistic, me alone, me and my family culture. What can we do? And then also, is there any effort or intention to twin with the Ministry of Community Development? Because this is something I've been trying to emphasize for the longest while. Unless we really integrate community development into everything we do, whether it's for climate, whether it's for disaster, whatever, we'll be failing, even for economic development. So is there any plans or is there any effort to twin or align the work of the NADMA with the government department, whatever it is, of community development? And finally, have we considered that in the event of actual disaster, some of the people who have been trained could be injured, and so that we should have some backup plan? And also, some folks, because Grenada is a very mobile place, people are leaving all the time for greener pasture. Have we taken those things seriously? Because sometimes we train people, and as soon as we train them, like with the traffic light, the person who was trained went away. Thanks.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution this morning. Any response, Dr. Walters?
All right. The involving the various ministries. Now, the structure of the National Disaster Management Agency is such that almost all government ministries are part of the entity: legal affairs, foreign affairs, infrastructure, health, community development. All right. So all of the government ministries and all of the other entities, the religious entities, the community-based entities, all of these entities, our fuel companies, our utility companies, all of these entities are part of the disaster management structure. There's what is called the National Emergency Advisory Council, and all of these entities are part. So we work closely with all the entities across the country to ensure that that Grenada is prepared. All right, that's the mandate of the National Disaster Management Agency, to ensure that Grenada is prepared. Now, you spoke about, the caller spoke about the backup plan. And that's why I mentioned at the beginning, we have to do continuous training. Remember, I said that some of these people have already been trained, and then there are new ones who are, coming on board that we need to continue training. So we provide continuous training because we do understand, yes, people migrate, people move on for whatever reason. Some people choose not to be involved again, so we have to train others, and so we continue training. And the good thing about that is that even if we train people and then they're no longer interested in being a part of the structure, if something happens, they already have the training and they can pitch in, even though it's just for a day or two, but they already have the training. So we would continue to provide training for people so we always have a pool of people there available to provide services in disaster management.
Caller, good morning. We do have another call online. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, bro. How you doing? Good morning to Mr. Walters.
Good morning to you.
Mr. Walters, back in the days, we grew up in a little Janet house, a little small houses, and when the rain fall, with water going around the roof and run down in the yard and make it like a drain and go down in the gutter and go down in the sea, right? But these days, we have what you call mansions and nice houses. And everybody, you got to